PC for £1,200 with a 240GB SSD, a GTX 1070, and overclocked i5-6600K? Is it any good, or do you pay too much of a premium for getting pre-built? Let's find out. As you saw from the intro, this Dino PC Primal Alpha boasts some pretty impressive specs, but let's kick it off with a physical overview before we get into the intricacies in my opinion and that kind of thing. The case that they've gone for is the Corsair Spec Alpha, perhaps taking some of that in their own name as the Primal Alpha gaming PC, and it's a really nice case in my opinion. It's an ATX case, meaning it supports full-size ATX motherboards, but keeps it in quite a nice small compact form factor. I've definitely seen a hell of a lot bigger ATX cases, but not many smaller that support that motherboard form factor. Not to mention it's also got support for 3 hard drives and 2 SSDs, or you could just go out and get 5 SSDs and shove them in this, but it comes by default with a 1TB Toshiba hard drive and also an ADATA SP550 240GB SSD. Windows of course, which comes pre-installed, is going to be installed on that SSD, and then that hard drive is going to be in mass storage, so that when you install your games and that kind of thing, your movies, music, you put that on there in order to not slow down your SSD or not fill up your SSD too fast. In terms of motherboard, they went for the Asus Z170P. Going for a Z170 board in my opinion is important because it allows for better I/O, better SLI and crossfire support for motherboard manufacturers. They often have better cooling on to facilitate for overclocking. That extra cooling isn't just good for overclocking, but also for increasing the lifespan and longevity of the system and the motherboard and the CPU, that kind of thing. It houses of course the LJ1151 socket, and on that is the i5-6600K, which is currently Intel's highest end i5 until their launch of Kaby Lake, which is expected late this year, early next year. Keeping that CPU cool because they do overclock it for you to 4.5 GHz, which is a really nice addition. A good job on that one, Dino PC. Is the Corsair H55. It's a nice quiet cooler. It's got a 120mm radiator and it's pushable, which is really great. In terms of graphics card, the GTX 1070 in my opinion is the biggest selling point for this PC. Not only is it an incredible card at 1080 and 1440p, it's also very much so capable of some 4K gaming. If you want to max out 4K and ultra settings, 60 FPS, 70 FPS, you will want to pop up to the 1080, but the 1070 is great for medium to high settings. Turn anti-aliasing down just a little bit and you're going to be getting a good solid 60 FPS, but the performance benchmarks will come later in this video. In terms of that GTX 1070, it is made by Palette, who are one of the slightly less known NVIDIA GPU manufacturers. Now this isn't necessarily a bad choice, however it isn't going to be quite as good as something like an Asus or GeekaWhat card that goes for more money. That being said, if they spent £30 or £40, I would have criticised them. I'm going a slightly higher end card because that extra price isn't going to warrant much better performance, because it's still based on that GTX 1070 chip with the same amount of VRAM on the same manufacturing process. You know, so to me it isn't really a big deal breaker that they've gone for a Palette card as opposed to something from GeekaWhat or Asus, those kind of manufacturers. There's also some LED fans in here as well. The build follows a very much so a white, black and red theme, which I thought was a perfect choice. The white's actually really refreshing to see with the red, and the colours have clearly been taken from the case, which I think is another good touch. The LED fans could be seen to some as slightly gimmicky, but they match the red braided cables, which are another great inclusion to this system. One kind of criticism or downside I would give it is the low power supply. So it's 650 watts, which is more than enough for a system of this calibre, and it's a Corsair unit, so it's going to be nice and reliable. That being said, it isn't a highly rated 80+ bronze, silver or gold power supply, so I would prefer something that did have an 80+ silver or gold certification as opposed to this Corsair VS650. Not to say it isn't going to power your system, it does come with a good warranty as well on the power supply, so there's not going to be any problems there. And Corsair are reputable. It just might have been nice to see something just a little bit higher end in this department, but it isn't going to kind of reduce or degrade the performance of the system in any way. To wrap up the physical overview, we've also got 16GB of RAM from Corsair, their Vengeance RPX, clocked at 2666 MHz. That's enough of me rambling. I'm going to roll some benchmarks and then come back with you with my comments, conclusions and thoughts, that kind of thing. As you saw there, the benchmarks for this system are impressive to say the least, and that GTX 1070 and i5 6600K pairing are really ideal for one another. But what do I like, what do I dislike? The fact that this comes in at just £1,200 to buy from them. I totted it up myself, and off PC Part Picker it comes in at £11.29, and this retails for £11.99. £70 and you're spending £1,200 on a computer really isn't much. And some people would argue, well, James, I prefer to build it because I can customise it and I can choose the parts that I want and get in-mail rebates and that kind of thing, and so would I. That's what I like. I enjoy building PCs, and that's why I do it. If you enjoy building a computer, this clearly isn't the option for you. But you could also argue, why when I go to Tesco on a Friday morning for my lunch before school do I spend £1.29 on a 500ml bottle of Pepsi when there's one 4 times the size at 2 litres for just £1? One that costs less but is 4 times the size. It's called convenience, and a lot of people like that. A lot of people want the reassurance of good customer service. A lot of people want the reassurance of the 5-year warranty that comes with this PC. And whilst personally I would encourage people to build a PC, it is fun, it's a good thing to learn, it's a nice skill to have in your arsenal, so to speak. If you are looking for something pre-built, you're looking for something that can certainly kick a punch, then this is the one for you. It's got really great braided cables as well. It's got a good colour scheme throughout, something that some people may find hard to do. They might think, well, these specs are all confusing. Some people want the convenience, and if that's you, then this is, once again, the system for you. I'll leave links to Dino PC's website and where you can get this in the description below, but I just want to end the video on a couple of things that I would personally change. I'd like a power supply with an 80+ silver or gold rating personally, because that's what's taking electricity from your wall and putting it into your system. So when you're dealing with electricity, I'd just like something perhaps with that 80+ rating, just to reassure me slightly. It's from Corsair, so you're not going to have any problems with it per se. You do have a 5-year warranty with this power supply as well from Dino PC, who manufacture the computer. I'd perhaps also like to see a hard drive from Seagate or Western Digital, preferably Western Digital, as those tend to be tested for slightly higher reliability. The Toshiba drive in here is good enough, but it is a little bit cheaper, so it's just something to keep in mind. It isn't a deal breaker at all, but it's just something that I thought was worth noting. I really like the case, the colour scheme and that kind of thing, and it's a very solid system at quite a good price actually. If you did enjoy this video, you know what to do. Please drop a like rating, and as always, do subscribe. I'll drop a link to their website if you would like to pick this up, and thank you to Dino PC for sending this over. But as always, we'll see you in the next GeekaWhat video.